Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Quick question, how's your day going? Seriously, been feeling like the world's a little off lately? Like there's more happening behind the scenes than anyone wants to admit? If so, you're not alone, and you're in the right place. On this channel, we don't just scroll past the headlines. We ask why, we dig deeper, and we connect the dots they hope you'll never notice. Not to spread fear, but to stay aware. Because the more you understand what's really going on, the more power you have over your own life. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's pull back the curtain together. They said Apollo 11 was about winning the space race, about beating the Soviets, planting a flag, making history. But that was only the surface. Behind closed doors, a different story unfolded. One that never aired on television, never made it into textbooks. It began in 1965, when the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico picked up an unusual signal. It wasn't coming from a distant star system, but from beneath the surface of the moon. A repeated pulse, buried in layers of interference, too structured to be natural, too strange to explain. A small group inside NASA and the Department of Defense took notice. Among them, Wernher von Braun. To the public, he was a rocket scientist. Privately, he called the signal the Whisper and warned that it might not be human. Instead of sounding alarms, they classified everything. They developed a covert mission plan. Apollo 11 would proceed as scheduled, but with a second objective: locate the source of the signal. This hidden directive was known as Project Moonveil. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were briefed just days before launch. They were told to maintain radio silence if they discovered anything anomalous. The world would be watching, but not everything would be shared. On July 20th, 1969, the Eagle landed in the Sea of Tranquility. What happened next didn't match the public broadcast. A transmission, recorded but never aired, came through. "They're already here," Armstrong reported. The words were never acknowledged. The footage was cut. From that moment on, the true mission of Apollo 11 disappeared into the shadows. In the official records, Apollo 11 completed its objectives without incident. But within NASA's inner circle, a silent panic had begun. Armstrong's transmission, "They're already here," was dismissed in public, but dissected in secret. Audio engineers confirmed it was authentic. The tone in his voice wasn't fear, it was reverence. Like he had seen something that changed him. After returning to Earth, Armstrong withdrew from public life. He gave speeches, yes, but never spoke in detail about the moon. When asked about alien life, he would deflect, politely, carefully, as if answering honestly came with a cost. Aldrin, too, showed signs of strain. He once told a reporter off the record that he saw lights moving on the horizon. "They watched us," he said, "like we were trespassers." Project Moonveil was expanded. Quietly, other astronauts were given classified briefings. Later Apollo missions were assigned to scan for subsurface anomalies. Apollo 12 and 14 conducted seismic tests, but the data was manipulated before public release. Only a handful of insiders had access to the raw reports. They showed something impossible, shallow vibrations like the moon was hollow. Or worse, like something inside was moving. In 1971, during Apollo 15, the crew planted seismic charges near a deep crater. The impact caused a tremor that lasted over an hour. Internally, the data was labeled Resonance Event Theta. It suggested the moon rang like a bell. That phrase would become infamous among conspiracists. To NASA, it meant one thing: the moon might not be natural. The question was no longer what was under the surface. It was who or what had put it there. By 1972, Apollo missions were facing increased scrutiny. Budgets were slashed, public interest had waned, and the official stance was that the moon had given all it could. But inside NASA's black files, urgency was growing. A classified team was formed, detached from the main agency. Engineers, linguists, and former intelligence officers. Their task wasn't exploration. It was analysis. They had recovered something. It was Armstrong who first described it in his post-mission debriefing under secure conditions. Buried a few meters beneath the landing site had been a geometric structure, metallic, angular, unlike anything known to science. It emitted no heat, no radiation, yet distorted nearby magnetic instruments. The crew was told not to disturb it, but Armstrong had reached out, touched the surface. For a moment, his heart rate spiked. Later, medical staff noted a brief arrhythmia, an anomaly that vanished within minutes. He never spoke of the object again. NASA returned to the site during Apollo 17 under the guise of geological sampling. Using modified equipment, they extracted a sliver of the material. Lightweight, impossibly strong. The composition didn't match any known alloy. Not lunar, not terrestrial. The object was transported to a secure facility, its location redacted in all known documents. Those who worked near it described strange phenomena: electrical interference, vivid dreams, a constant hum at the edge of perception. They called it the monolith fragment, and it wasn't the only one. Sensors placed across the moon's surface began detecting echoes, faint patterns that suggested a network, a buried lattice of unknown purpose, something vast, ancient, and deliberately hidden. Project Moonveil's purpose had shifted. It was no longer about discovery. It was about containment. In the decades that followed, the moon became a silence. No more manned missions. No more televised triumphs. Just dust, data, and denials. Project Moonveil continued, but deep underground. It was no longer controlled by NASA. Authorities shifted to a joint task force operating under the Department of Defense, with silent partners from intelligence agencies and private aerospace firms. The recovered fragment, now referred to internally as Artifact V1, remained inert. But in 1987, during a routine magnetic scan, it responded. The signal was faint, rhythmic, and precisely timed, 13 pulses, followed by silence. It matched the original signal from 1965, the one that had started everything. That year, 2 more probes were launched under civilian cover. Officially, they were part of weather satellite programs. In reality, they were equipped to skim beneath the moon's crust using ground-penetrating radar. The data they returned never saw the light of day. Beneath the surface, arranged in symmetrical patterns, were hundreds of structures, some just meters long, others the size of stadiums. All buried, all cold. But one of them wasn't. Site Theta 7, located near the moon's south pole, showed thermal activity. Faint, but active. It was as if something inside was still functioning on standby, or perhaps waiting for a signal. Debate broke out within the task force. Some believed the structures were relics. Others believed they were part of a dormant system, a kind of planetary machine. And a few, those with access to the deepest files, believed they weren't machines at all. They were vessels, waiting. By the early 2000s, Project Moonveil had vanished from official records. Not terminated, just absorbed. Fragmented into private contracts, academic partnerships, and shell companies. Even insiders didn't know who was truly in charge. But the signal returned. In 2012, an experimental telescope array in Chile detected a pulse, identical in structure to the one first received in 1965, but stronger. This time, it wasn't coming from the moon. It was bouncing off of it, reflected, redirected, like a relay. Triangulation traced the origin to deep space, roughly 500 light-years away. A dead zone. No stars, no planets, nothing visible. But something had sent a message, and the moon had answered. In response, Project Moonveil was reactivated under a new name. Its existence remains unacknowledged, its funding obscured through defense budgets and aerospace black projects. The monolith fragment, once inert, began emitting trace amounts of energy. Low-frequency vibrations, shifts in local magnetic fields. Some believe it's waking up. Others think it never slept. Of the original Apollo astronauts, few remain. Those still living refuse to speak publicly. One former technician, diagnosed with terminal cancer, gave a final interview in 2019. It was never aired, but in the leaked transcript, he was asked what Project Moonveil had truly discovered. His reply was simple. We weren't the first ones there. We were the first ones stupid enough to knock. And what's beneath the moon? A vault, a message, or a warning. Whatever it is, it was never meant to be found. But now, it's listening.